today, and we're going to go ahead and jump right on into it. I'm going to start with our land acknowledgement. It simply says, place matters. It is essential to acknowledge the land that we're on. It is a land that has been stolen twice over, first by the Spanish in 1521 and later by the United States government in 1852. With the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe, Mexico ceded 55% of its territory, including parts of present-day Arizona, California, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, Nevada, and Utah to the United States. The land that Denver sits on originally belonged to the Arapaho tribe. As laid out in the 1851 land, result of hundreds of Arapaho and policing and public safety, as symbols on land that was originally stewarded by indigenous people, and that we have a moral and spiritual obligation to right the historic wrongs that have been committed by local, state, and federal governments. Acknowledging that place matters is not forgetting the cultural, historical, environmental, social, and political context of the land we're sitting on. We're also going to read a reparations acknowledgement, and then I'm going to make a statement about reparations. Healing, reconciliation, and reparations matters. It is essential to acknowledge that the United States of America was established on the forced labor of Africans who were kidnapped and enslaved. After the end of slavery in 1865, local, state, and federal governments conspired through legislation and acts of terrorism to keep the people called Negroes, Blacks, and African Americans as a permanent underclass. We acknowledge that the Denver Task Force to Reimagine Policing and Public Safety and all Americans benefited in one way or another from the exploitation of Blacks for nearly 400 years in this nation. We further acknowledge that we have a moral and spiritual obligation to right the historic wrongs that have been committed by local, state, and federal governments. It is the desire of the task force to replace the system of white supremacy and oppression with a system of true justice in which everyone is treated fairly and those who need the most help get it. I want to just share, and I'm probably going to do this just a couple of more times, on the need for America to provide the descendants of enslaved Americans, the descendants of freedmen, with reparations, cash reparations, as well as other forms of reparations that were promised to us at the end of the Civil War. And one of the arguments against reparations is that this is 2025, and the people who enslaved Black Americans are all dead. So then, why should I, a white person living today in the United States of America, who in many cases are individuals that immigrated to America well after slavery had ended, why should I, a recent immigrant, be responsible for paying reparations for crimes that I never committed, that I never participated in? And furthermore, I have devoted my entire life to fighting against injustice, not just against descendants of enslaved Americans, but I've spent my life fighting against injustice against all people. So then now, why should I be responsible for paying reparations? Well, the answer is very simple. The United States of America, against my protest, against my strong admonitions, chose to enter into a war against both Afghanistan and Iraq. We chose to bomb their cities and to kill civilians. After the war ended, even though I had nothing to do with that, I didn't participate in it in any way. I was in no way aligned with the United States government in that act that they committed. And yet, I am still forced through my tax dollars to pay reparations to Afghanistan for not only crimes I didn't commit, but also, I'm gonna ask everyone please to mute. Not only am I forced to pay taxes to pay reparations to Iraq when I was the one protesting the war in the first place, but I'm also forced to pay taxes to help Israel and what I believe they're committing to, and what I believe they are participating in a genocide. Because when you are an American, you assume whatever debt the United States government owes to whoever they owe that money to, even if you didn't participate in incurring the debt. By being an American citizen, you benefit from the freedoms, the liberties, and the privileges that come with being an American citizen, but you also incur the debt that America has incurred. Now, America could have, as I conclude, America could have chosen in 1865 to fulfill its promise to the freedmen, to give them their 40 acres and a mule. Instead of doing any other reparations that were involved, but that's kind of like the catch, the cliche one, to give them the 40 acres and a mule. But instead, the federal government chose to give reparations to former slaveholders, to repair them for losing their slaves, and then to join hands with former slaveholders to hold Black people down as a permanent underclass. So the debt should have been paid to my great great grandfather named Joseph Davis. It wasn't. He died, and so now the government owed that debt to my grandfather, to my great grandfather John Davis Sr. They didn't pay it to him. So it was now owed to my grandfather, John Davis Jr. They chose not to pay it to him, even though he fought in World War II. Not only did they not pay him reparations, but they also screwed him out of the full benefits of the GI Bill that he was promised. But they chose not to pay him, so they then owed it to my father, John Davis III, who died on January the 31st. They chose not to pay him as well. So now the federal government owes it to his descendants, and they're going to continue to owe it until they choose to pay the reparations that are owed. There are other arguments that are leveled against reparations, but that's one of the main ones. I wanted to put it out there. This country owes a debt to Native Americans. Um, I don't agree with the way that they've repaid that debt, but they owe a debt to Native Americans. They owe a debt to descendants of enslaved Americans. And until we address those two original sins, our nation will continue to be corrupt and will continue to practice oppression and disenfranchisement. With that long soliloquy that you were kind enough to listen to, we'll take a moment of silence. All right, we're going to jump into it. We don't really have a long agenda for today. I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, who's going to share with us the Go Bond scorecard and what's going on with that group. Kristen, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you today, Dr. Davis?
Man, never felt better. Better than I deserve.
Good. I took the family out for our flu and COVID shots today, so getting ready for fall and winter.
Ooh, God bless you.
Um, so I know the budget working group did a lot of work, and I'm so excited to see Mylin on this call. And Mylin, please interrupt me if I get anything wrong or add to this. We did a lot of work as the city was starting to engage community around the Go Bond and creating what that's going to look like. And the reason that I put my little air quotes up is because it was really clear, really quickly, that the mayor had his idea of what the Go Bond was going to be before he did his performative acts of engagement. And so the official Go Bond, the Vibrant Denver is what it is often called, is on going to be on the November ballot now. We of course did a lot of advocating for, investing in community, making sure that we're doing infrastructure that get to root cause of crime, really looking at preventative measures, investing in our kids, investing in the neighborhoods that really need the most investment. I am going to use a quote from Councilwoman Sarah Parody on the Go Bond, and I think it really sums it up well. And they have it separated into 5 different pieces. It will be 2A through 2E. So when you get your Denver ballot, you'll have each measure to vote on. And really, there is good and bad in each of these. Each measure is its own individual shit sandwich. And those were Councilwoman Parody's words on it. So, and so, you know, we were talking, and Mylin really brought it back up in our last budget meeting, like, where do we go now with this go bond? It's on there. And I was really doing a lot of thought around that and like, what does that look like? And what is the next step of advocacy? This is on the ballot. There's no more advocating for it to look different. And really what our power now is looking at each one of these individually and saying, and giving it a scorecard and helping educate voters on exactly what each individual bond does. 2D, I have to say, for me personally, is the most alarming. And that is because it is funding a police training facility. And when we look at all these budget cuts that have happened in our city over the past few months, if there's one department that has not had to make any cuts and any sacrifices, it is our police department. And, you know, and I have not made it through our 600 and whatever page budget book. I think I'm on page 320 of grazing through in spare time. But what I'm seeing cut are services to kids and environmental services and HIV education, but we're still giving money to our police department. And so that is one of the alarming ones. But in there is also funding for our libraries, right? And that is where these measures are going to be really hard. And so what we talked about doing and what we're going to do, this is such a long way to say this, I'm so sorry, is put together a group that will really be able to look at the Denver Task Force and TOCA's mission and vision and go, okay, look at each bond measure as an individual and say, this is how it meets our mission and vision, and this is how it works against it. And within this matrix, we're going to give it an A, B, C, D, E, F. And then as a 501c3 nonprofit, we're able to do an education project. I'm sorry, is the talking behind me bothering anybody else? Is it just me, Dr. Davis?
You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
We hear it, but we hear you even more.
Okay. Good. So that is to say, yeah, what does that say for Denver as a society not caring about the most vulnerable? It's really been it's going to be a rough budget season, Brandy. It's heartbreaking what we're about to go into. So, but we are going to do a working group. It'll be a short-lived working group where we're just going to put out a scorecard, and then we're going to talk about how are we going to educate people on this scorecard, what that looks like, how we're going to get it out to groups. So people really understand what they're voting on. Denver has a history of just voting yes on our bond measures. And, you know, I don't know if this mayor deserves a blind yes vote. So I'm going to put in the chat a little sign up form to join the group on there. It has some dates thrown out in times, and just check whichever dates and times work for you. And then you'll hear from me probably by the end of Thursday on when our next meeting for that Go Bond working group will be. Does anybody have any questions on that, like, word vomit of the Go Bond? Okay, awesome. Well, I am putting there is the form if you want to join that working group to score out the Go Bond and help strategize in how we're going to do outreach throughout Denver to be sure that people really understand what they're voting on when it comes to this. Because there's a few good things in there with a lot of really bad things. And so people really need to understand. And, some of these things, the good might outweigh the bad, and some of them it might not. So
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions before we move forward? All right. The next action is one that really troubles my heart and troubles it from the perspective. It's not something that I wanted to do. I have a relationship with Al Gardner. We're not, bosom buddies, but we have worked together in the past. And I really do like and think he's a very brilliant man. But I submitted a letter to the Denver City Council asking that they oppose his nomination for the executive director of safety. I'm going to put that letter on the screen if you haven't seen it before. Not to be insulting, but I'm going to go ahead and read it very quickly, and you can follow along. To the honorable members of the Denver City Council, and you see it was dated September the 10th. On behalf of the Denver Task Force to Reimagine Police and Public Safety, we write to respectfully urge the council to reject the nomination of Al Gardner as Executive Director of Public Safety. While we recognize and respect Mr. Gardner's years of service in technology and operations leadership, he does not possess the requisite background or training to lead the agency responsible for Denver's police, fire, sheriff, meaning the jails, 911, community corrections, and violence prevention offices. Equally concerning is the fact that this nomination was made without meaningful community involvement. The Department of Public Safety has faced long-standing challenges in building and maintaining trust with Denver residents, particularly in communities most impacted by policing and incarceration. To move forward responsibly, Denver needs a transparent and inclusive process, one that ensures the community has a voice in selecting the individual who will oversee these critical agencies. And I should have added, similar to the process that was outlined by Mayor Hancock when selecting the former chief of police. Number one, no formal public safety or first responder experience. Mr. Gardner, professional background is rooted in IT management and strategic operations, including leadership at a hospitality startup and a health service organization. These skills, while important, do not translate into the operational expertise required to manage law enforcement, fire services, or correctional institutions. Number two, advisory experience does not equal operational command. Mr. Gardner has served on oversight and advisory bodies, including the Citizens Oversight Board, the Civic Service Commission, and advisory boards for both the police and sheriff departments. While these positions are valuable, they are fundamentally advisory in nature. They do not provide the operational command or crisis management experience necessary to lead departments charged with protecting lives, managing emergencies, or overseeing correctional facilities. Number three, precedent of competent, experienced leadership. Mr. Gardner's predecessor, Armando Sarate III, brought direct experience with the Phoenix Police Department, the FBI, and the Denver Sheriff Department. Even with that wealth of experience, the Department of Public Safety faced significant challenges under his leadership. We can only imagine how much more tumultuous the agency would become if placed in the hands of someone with little to no experience in law enforcement, firefighting, or corrections. Number four, the need for proven leadership in uncertain times. Denver is facing local challenges against the backdrop of a national climate where the Trump administration is rolling back civil liberties and promoting policies that resemble a police state. In this environment, it is critical that our city not mirror these federal trends. We need a leader who can stand up to the Trump administration, especially around surveillance, overreach, and the erosion of civil rights, while ensuring safety for Denver's residents. Only someone with proven operational experience in law enforcement, fire services, first responder administration, or corrections can provide the steady leadership required to resist harmful federal pressures, maintain community trust, and safeguard the values our city stands for. And number five, a corrective path forward. The task force strongly urged the City Council to prioritize candidates with proven operational command experience in law enforcement, firefighting, or corrections, and to require that future nominations involve robust community participation. Denver deserves an executive director of public safety chosen not only for their qualifications, but also through a process that honors transparency, accountability, and public trust. For these reasons, we respectfully request that the City Council exercise caution and reject this nomination. Thank you for your consideration and for your ongoing commitment to continued community-centered safety. All right, I'll pause here, and if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, I see there's some stuff in the chat. So if someone can, Kristen, if you'd be so kind as to help me with anything that's coming in from the chat. Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask vocally, or is Christian asking any questions in the chat?
Amy Beck asked in the chat if we're going to ask any other orgs to sign on to this letter.
So yes, we're not putting together. I'm not putting together a full-throated opposition, but I really would encourage those who share our sentiments or different sentiments to share that with City Council. So I would encourage you to draft a similar letter, even more so than just signing on, and to email your City Council person. This was actually sent to every City Council person, but I would encourage you to at least email your City Council person and express the concerns. As a Black man, I of course have reservations opposing the nomination of another Black man. Those of you who know, we did not oppose the nomination of Chief Thomas or of Sheriff Diggins. And Mark Anthony, I see your hand. I'm gonna come to you just one second. While we share several policy disagreements with both Sheriff Diggins and Chief Thomas, both of those gentlemen are more than qualified to lead the agencies that they lead. There's no one that can argue that Chief Thomas is not only qualified to, or has not received the requisite training, has not served in the requisite offices and positions, and has not demonstrated an ability to lead a police department, not just here in Denver, but anywhere in the nation for that matter. And so the concern is that the first time since I've been in Denver, we would have someone that is just not qualified. Mark Anthony and then Jesse.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Just want to say thank you for writing this letter and for sending this to City Council. That echoes a lot of the conversations the councilwoman and I have been having about this issue. Been hearing it from constituents. Very dangerous that this is even a nominee, and I can't underscore that enough. So thank you for that. And then in terms of the bond conversation that has been discussed, our current economic condition as a city with the general fund is extremely fragile, and it's still not transparent, and we're operating with facts and figures that we can't really rely upon. So just want to underscore the thank you for that as well, for this group, for having tough conversations, sharing this with community, because I feel like this group is the first line of defense to keeping democracy in our city. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that, sir. Jesse and then Dr. Calderon.
Yeah. I don't think I fought for this position at all. He took to IT. He was on the IT. That's where he got. I honestly think this was retaliation for what happened to Jessica Calderon before the layoffs. This is their way of trying to cover up for the layoffs. So yeah, thank you for sending out this letter. I'm going to send out a similar letter as well.
Thank you, Jesse. I really appreciate your collaboration in the community and your support, sir. Dr. Calderon?
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm driving, of course. So yes, thank you, Dr. Davis, for writing the letter and being very clear about the opposition. I have no problem, as you know, calling out this nominee. I share Mark's viewpoint, and hopefully the councilwoman's. It sounds like that this is a dangerous precedent to have someone so unqualified for this position. And that's why I was like, brilliant. He's not brilliant for this position. And I also recall when he was on the COB, didn't return phone calls. our messages. And I think he was on the COP during the George Floyd protest time or close around there. So we did not get strong leadership from him on accountability. You know, nice guy, but this isn't about being nice. It's about that people are harmed and sometimes even killed by our police department. And the person who's in charge of our entire public safety apparatus, or who's being nominated for that, does not even hold the basic requisite qualifications. And there's also no job description. There was a recent post, and I can find it if anyone's interested, about they're looking for a lead litigator for the city of Denver to protect the city against civil rights claims. But even with that, the city attorney should be working for the people, not for the mayor. But even with that description, there is a long list of qualifications and experiences to be an assistant city attorney. And yet we don't even have a list of qualifications for the person who is going to run our public safety agencies. I like Amy's suggestion of being able to sign on to a letter for organizations. Part of the reason for that is because people just don't have time to write a bunch of letters. And second, I think the points that are made in the letter encapsulates the concerns that we have. So it's not just Dr. Robert Davis's concerns. I think it's the task force as a body. It's certainly my concerns as well, which I gave input a little bit to the letter as well. And I don't think we give someone a pass just because we have cordial relationships with them. So the last thing is, I really, really, really hope that the Denver City Council doesn't just verbalize their concerns from the dais and say, well, we really should be having a more qualified person, but then they go ahead and they vote him in anyway. I think this is one of the reasons. This is a perfect example of why, the polling for the mayor and the city council and really government in general, even.
Dr. Calderon, you're on mute. You accidentally muted yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Are you speaking?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I was done. I put my car into reverse and then I hit my phone, but that was it. So, but ultimately, Dr. Davis, it's your letter. And if you don't want people to sign on, that's fine. But I also don't think we give someone the light treatment. I think we need to oppose this potential appointee in the strongest of terms as a task force. That's it.
I appreciate that. And before I come to Brandy, I'm not opposed to people signing on. I was just thinking to myself, we've already sent this letter, and kind of like the horses out of the barn. So I will speak with Christian, and let's figure out how we get a follow-up with orgs who would like to sign on. So in the next day or two, Christian, if that's okay, we will send a letter to you, an email to each of you, and ask if you'd like to sign on, and then we will submit that. So I wasn't opposed to it. I just thought, man, we've already sent this letter, and we're up against the clock because this mayor does things very fast. And again, Brandy, give me one more second. I'm gonna come right to you, please. But for instance, when he was asking, community to support Diggins, Thomas, and Saurate, he had several community meetings in Montbello. You and I attended that together. I don't know if we attended together, Dr. Calderon, but we were both there. I think we attended about a couple of other ones that they had around the city. And so there was not even, and that's not even a real process that we were looking for, because all they did was stand up, present, and answer questions. But that's better than nothing. I'm not going to settle for that, but in hindsight, that's better than nothing. So if anyone would like to sign on, we're going to get a letter out to you, and we'll do our best to encourage everyone who would like to sign on to sign on. Brandy, thank you so much for your patience. You're on mute, Brandy. You're still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you
We're
now.
kind of playing with sound over here. Hold on one second. All right. I'll be brief. In regards to L. Gardner, my always could be the suspicious type. However, you don't go from running for mayor and being all the way in the back of the line to going a whole year and change, and nobody really hears from you. But you got something going on over there with the administration, and now you're going to be in charge. Now he nominated you for fire and the police, which he's
And
this will
Sheriff.
yeah, and sheriff. This will be one of those things where we'll undermine everything we work for and we work towards, especially when it comes to the racism in the police department and the sheriff department. You know, that's right there is going to be a serious thing. He's not if he can't hold his ground with the administration now, he won't be able to do it for us in the future. Secondly, I think that it's just everything that this administration is doing what I said it would do a long time ago, leave us houseless and jobless. And it's starting to shape up like that in a sad way. Um, the thing is, like, there's starting to become limited protection for us. And as far as this administration goes, the worse it seems to get. When it comes to financially with the budget and the economics and how he's managing it, it's starting to become really menacing, almost very malicious. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. And just to put a button on this before we move to the next item, I just read today that the Trump administration, through Secretary Marco Rubio, is proposing to cancel people's um, passports if they say speech that can be considered hateful or terroristic. And that is just troubling on so many fronts because we know what that means. That doesn't mean if you say something against blacks, if you say something against Native Americans, Asians, Latinos, that doesn't mean if you say something. It means if you say something against Israel, if you say something, against the nation of Israel, which, by the way, a federal judge ruled 2 weeks ago that it is a hate crime to burn the Israeli flag. It's freedom of speech to burn the American flag, but if you burn an Israeli flag, the federal judge, it hasn't gone to the Supreme Court yet, but the federal judge said that that is a form of a hate speech and is not protected by the First Amendment. And I know I'm butchering what the ruling was, but it may not have been hate speech, but it was basically um, it was some form of tyranny, some form of oppression to burn the Israeli flag, even though it's legal to burn the American flag. So with that backdrop, with that backdrop, we really need to be vigilant in our city. And I'm fearful that in many ways, this administration, this city administration, is mirroring what the Trump administration is doing with the surveillance, with the over policing, etc. So I appreciate y'all bringing to my attention to give others an opportunity to sign on. We will get started with that. To the next item on our agenda is education-based discipline, which has now received the name education-based development. We've talked about this extensively, so I'm not going to go too much. We've had the chief come in, but he is pushing forward at stealth speed. I want to give a shout out to Brother Jeff to the independent monitor, Liz Castle, to Dr. Calderon, to oh boy, I'm sorry, Julia Richmond from the Citizens Oversight Board, who really pushed back at that community forum at Brothers Jeff's. And so the chief of police has agreed to allow community groups to participate in shaping this policy. So I know some of the groups are, of course, the Task Force, Denver Justice Project, the NAACP, the Independent Monitor's Office, the Citizens Oversight Board, and I bet you I'm forgetting somebody, so I apologize. But he will be sending out invitations for these groups to have a voice and to participate. Women's Uprising will be, of course, one of the groups there. I know I was forgetting somebody, but and if I'm forgetting anybody else, please charge it to my head. But yes, they will be. So he will be assembling them, and we will be hopefully able to push back and to neutralize this policy that erases accountability. Like I said, I know we've talked about it, but if you have anything you want to share real quick, just jump right on in. And there is a sign-on petition, and so let me go ahead and copy that. This is the sign-on petition link that I'm dropping in the chat now. And there's also a link for you to make a comment, and I'm gonna drop that in there as well. Brother LaShawn, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're talking about the town hall meeting that took place last Saturday.
Yes.
Okay, so I got the tail end of it. From what I gathered, the community was very upset. They didn't really feel like their voices were being heard, and they let the chief and Jeff have it. Specifically, Mother Helen. Mother Helen was very upset about how the things went down with the question and answer, and it was like he was basically interviewing Chief Thomas opposed to addressing the issues that we have brought to him. And Rashawn, when I got there, he was going off on the chief because this has been an ongoing problem with no matter who the chief is since my friend Paul Charles got killed. It's just been the same old rigmarole, no matter who is the chief. So the community is just fed up with it. And when he couldn't even answer that, we had 112 recommendations. He said something like 120. He couldn't even remember the number. I was just like, what is going on here? And then it don't really seem like they're trying to address what we brought to them on the 1 year anniversary of George Floyd's killing. We still don't even know if all the 112 recommendations have been implemented. Clearly, they haven't. DPD is still running amok like they were 4 or 5 years ago. So, I mean, I don't want to get defeated about it. I think we just need to keep pressing the issue. But this mayor doesn't really seem to care. He just voted, him and the city council just voted to get the police a raise. So, I mean, I don't see that adhering to our recommendations whatsoever.
Yes, unfortunate, but you're correct. Thank you for sharing. The city claims that they've implemented over 75% of the 112 recommendations. And since those 112 recommendations, we've actually sent more, such as the one about the independent monitor, the education-based development, really education-based discipline. There's been a ton of other stuff that we've done since the recommendations have gone out to further promote those recommendations. The city claimed that from the 112, they've already implemented over 75. We've disagreed with that. They've developed a portal that you can find online where they show each of the recommendations and then how they've implemented it, so you can kind of see. But we went back and forth for almost a year, if you as each of you remember, with Director Sarate over that issue, and so we just keep pushing forward. We just got to keep pushing justice. That's all we can do. And people who say that that this is impossible. I used to be a reformer, meaning that I thought that the police department could be reformed. I know that we need to have some form of protection for our most vulnerable citizens. I recognize that there are evil people in the world, uh, but this municipal police department structure that developed out of the slave patrols is not the answer, and it needs to be abolished. And for those who often feel overwhelmed, you're talking to the descendant of an enslaved American. My great great grandfather did not know who his mother was. And I remember crying like a baby when I read the first few pages of Frederick Douglass' biography because it made me think about my grandfather, who he didn't know who his mother was. She would sneak because she was sold to another plantation. And as a little boy, 3, 4 years old, his mother would come back and would lay down with him at nighttime. But then she would have to get up and walk 20 miles or so back to her plantation before sunrise. So when he would wake up in the morning, she was always gone. And he said, when she died, I didn't even know that she had died. It was like an animal had passed, had died. No one even told me. And so if that evil institution can be broken, then I believe that anything can be broken, especially considering how much of America's wealth was uh, predicated and conditioned on slavery. I believe anything can be done. We can do this. Let's not give up the fight. All right. After giving myself that pep talk, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. We're going to talk about flock, and representing the task force on this flock committee, the city council and the mayor organized, is Christian. So Christian, how you doing again?
Hi, everybody. I think, as it was already mentioned, I think in the chat and in discussion around Al Gardner is, yeah, flock, the cameras are still on. So despite the city council votes, despite all the advocacy that we have put into turning these cameras off, they are still on. And Megan, I'm so glad you're here. So Megan with Councilwoman Parody's office is on here. If I miss anything, please unmute yourself and interrupt me. I am going to share my screen. I want everyone to see the timeline we have had around flock. I might not share my screen because I don't think I have that. Oh, yes, here it is. Found it.
As co-host, you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I've used Zoom before. So watch out, world. All right, can you guys see my fancy timeline now? Can you see that, Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Okay, amazing. So this is the timeline of flock. May or June of 2024, the flock cameras began operating under temporary contract with DPD. In April 2nd of 2025, the contract expansion came to City Council Committee, and let's all just give a big, huge emoji thumbs up and clapping to Megan Ives, who is on this call, because when that came across Councilwoman Parody's desk, it was Megan who said, I think we need to research this. This doesn't seem right. And Megan sounded the alarm. And from that, Councilwoman Parody, along with her other champions at City Council, started asking questions. April 8th, DPD commander tells Councilwoman Parody that Denver shares flock data with about 3,500 agencies nationwide. Later, that statement is walked back, and they did not share with that much. During this time, when the question of as you can see, April 2nd only shared with the Colorado agencies. All this time they're saying no, ICE has no access to our flock data. April 24th, DPD tells 9 News that the FBI members have access to the Denver flock system, and we know the FBI is working with ICE. May 5th, Denver City Council unanimously votes down flock contract extension. May 14th, Mayor Mike Johnson says he intends to keep the camera up. He just reduced the contract price to $490,000, so City Council can't tell him what to do. And he denies still that ICE has any access to the flock data. May 27th, investigative reporting reveals thousands of flock searches nationwide, 2024 to 2025, for ICE and immigration enforcement have in fact happened. 28th, we submitted a Cora to see Denver's actual data around this. We asked for both the flock audit and we asked for emails. We did finally get the flock audit. It's in here. It's in like September, I think, August. Still waiting on those emails. We actually paid the fee for them and we're still waiting for them. So May 30th, the Denver Task Force sent the Cora. Looking for all that. June 3rd, they finally acknowledged our request. June 9th, Chief Thomas tells the media that Denver data was on a national network until April 8th and denies ICE has any access to the data. June 16th, they came back to us asking for specific things on our Cora. The 20th, 9 News investigation reveals that the Loveland Police Department gave an ATF agent access to their flock portal where he performs searches for ICE in April. July 7th, the mayor unilaterally extends that contract. 8th, DPD and Flock Inc. filed a permit to install 4 new cameras across the city, including one on East Colfax. And I want to take a moment here and also say one of the interesting things that has also come up recently, and Megan, interrupt me if I get any of this wrong, please, is that at one point the CEO of Flock, and I think it was right around this time, also came out and spoke with some city council members. He did a little press tour and mentioned that there are also private businesses that are on the Flock system that share their data nationwide. Now, as an automatic license plate reader, not sure why these private residents and businesses are having Flock cameras on their homes, but this is another access point that is happening nationally, giving ICE, the federal government, access to knowing where our Colorado and Denver residents are. July 23rd, we finally got that audit report. For the most part, the reason for their searches were blank. There are 1,400 out-of-state agencies showing that they were accessing Denver for ICE purposes, but they redacted all the other search information for privacy reasons. I went back and argued with them a little bit and did not win that argument. Still waiting for those emails. On August 7th, 2 Congress members actually opened a formal investigation on Flock. August 11th, a coalition of 17 civil rights and advocacy groups, including us, released a statement calling for Flock cameras to be turned off in Denver. And Dr. Davis very eloquently spoke at that press conference. August 17th, DPD has revoked Loveland's access to the data because they were found to be sharing with ICE. I want to add to this, we also saw that recently, ICE was in Denver. It was Colorado Springs Sheriff's Department and El Paso County working with ICE. Those offices have access to Flock data. So even if ICE or federal agencies don't have direct access, I want to be clear, there is plenty of access happening. In September, right, we started a task force. The Denver City Council started a task force along with the mayor's office to look at Flock. And it is mayor heavy. It has our, very pro flock, and then a nice like CERC and ACLU and us, and then some of our allies from city council are on there, pushing and asking questions. And I have the honor of sitting on that on behalf of the task force. And I promise I will represent you all well and be firm and ask questions. But part of this purpose, and when I think of Al Gardner and I think of flock, and I think these two things are very connected, because when we think of Al Gardner, his background is in tech. And what is flock? Flock is all about this artificial surveillance of the people of Denver. And this is what is coming up in this task force, is how many ways are we being surveilled throughout our city? And when we think of what is happening on the national level, anything short of shutting down the surveillance is irresponsible to every single one of us and puts our city at risk. So that is kind of where we are right now with flock. It is not where we want it to go. You could see like it is just, but we keep pushing and we keep catching them in their lies and we keep calling out their lies. Megan, do you want to kind of add to where we are on this flock business? If I'm missing anything in this update?
Yeah, let me think. Oh, sorry. Was someone else gonna?
Mm-mm. It's all you.
Yeah. No, I think you did a great job. Thank you. I will just say a few things. DPD confirmed to us recently that 3 FBI employees still have access to Flock system. So although they'll say they only share Flock data now with agencies in Colorado, we know that FBI employees report to Trump. And so that doesn't, that doesn't quell any of our concerns about the data sharing issues here. I'll also say there's like a really inspiring growing movement across the US really, and including in Colorado that, cities are rejecting the flock contract extension. I think Kristen might have had this in there, but Louisville, Colorado on August 12th rejected their contract extension. There's several other cities across the US that have now done this as well. And I see news articles almost daily about communities that are pushing back and talking about how, this kind of mass surveillance is not what safety looks like for our communities, and that, we reject this kind of surveillance and what it has been used to do already. And then I'll also say our offices have been meeting with registered neighborhood organizations around the city and really trying to kind of build a grassroots level of community engagement on Flock. And it's been really notable, every conversation we have, even when DPD and the mayor's office are there to speak up to their side, the community is almost unanimously opposed. Like this isn't a complicated issue. There's of course conversations to be had around how we use technology to, assist our police department in whatever crime fighting they think it's relevant to. But I think we've seen with Flock that this company is not trustworthy and DPD truly doesn't know how it functions really. And then the last thing I'll say is that we had our second surveillance task force meeting last week, and DPD did a brief presentation on their slides after we presented ours. And they admitted that they didn't even realize that they were sharing all of our location data on the national network until April of this year when we started asking questions. They also admitted that they hadn't done a good job with their audits, and so they missed all the times when searches had been done on our cameras for ICE and Border Patrol and immigration. So it was pretty interesting to me that they were willing to admit those things kind of in that setting. But, so that just kind of adds to what we've been saying. Councilmember Parody and Gonzalez Gutierrez are talking to the other council members, their colleagues, with the ongoing ask that they should join us in the call for these cameras to be turned off. So I am touching base with my boss and Councilwoman Gonzalez Gutierrez on that, but I think we might have some asks pretty soon here for community to, also ask council to do the same.
Yeah,
Amy,
the
great
other
call.
thing, oh, sorry, and I don't know if you have more information on this, Megan. One of the things that I found interesting is the DPD now has a department that solely is looking at all the AI and surveillance that they're using and looking how to better utilize all of it together in a single system, which is terrifying. Also to me. Like right now, at least none of the systems talk to each other, and they're trying to figure out how to like get all their data from all their AI surveillance talking to each other. And that was one of the things that came up that, again, this is why my biggest argument around Flock will always be, it's not just Flock. Flock is the, like, our entryway into getting proper law around what surveillance technology looks like in our city. Amy asked, and exactly, Amy, and that is another reason why they want Gardner in that position and why having him in there is terrifying to me. And we do not need a, you know, all those tech companies getting in our Department of Safety. Amy also asked Megan, are the Flock task force meetings available to watch publicly?
No, they're not at this time. I can see if we want to re-up that ask, but no, we kind of fought over all the groups that could be involved, and we feel, yeah, we feel more hopeful that we have some really good folks to speak to some of these issues, but no, they're not public.
Yeah. Oh, and Julia Richmond is also in there with the Citizen Oversight Board. I forgot her when I was listing some of our allies on that task force. So, any other questions around Flock? Really, the advocacy, the call to action around it is to still bother your council members and the mayor that it's not okay. The surveillance is not okay. The risk is not worth it, and it needs to be not just shut off, it needs to be shut down. Clearly, I have very strong feelings. So.
Well, thank you for those feelings.
And oh, Megan, I'm going to call on you again to help me. Because the next item on our agenda is the budget. It was finally released. I have not made it through the whole budget. If you're looking for some nighttime reading because you can't sleep, here's like 650 pages of the Denver 2026 proposed budget. I have, due to the layoffs and reorganization, it's a lot to go through. It's going to be a lot of trying to match things up and figuring out what's actually being eliminated. I don't know how far I've really have not made it as deep as I wanted to make it into this by this meeting. So I apologize to everyone for that. But we do have Councilwoman Lewis has started this really fun event around the budget called it's the Denver Budget Book Club. I told her it's the first book club I've ever joined. And it's just going into different aspects of the budget. Her next thing is next Wednesday, where they will do a budget happy hour at Whittier Cafe. So it's really great. You could find how to RSVP and stuff to that on her Facebook page or her socials or through her newsletter. When I send out a summary newsletter, I'll add a link to RSVP to that. Beyond that, in the agenda, I've listed some important dates, including Saturday, October 4th. Part of the book club is Councilwoman Lewis will hold a community convening asking for feedback and input for budget proposals. There, and then Thursday, October 9th, will be the city council meeting that will be open to the public to watch, not comment on, where city council will discuss changes they would like to see the mayor make, and they send the letter. The mayor will look at that letter and send it back and send the revised budget from that budget on Monday, October 27th. There will be a public hearing on the Denver budget, and that's where we will all be able to go and give comment. We will talk about this as we get closer to that. And then Monday, November 3rd is when City Council passes the final budget. And that is the last chance for any amendments that the mayor may not have put through that City Council wants, but those have to go through with a veto-proof vote at that point. So that is kind of my real brief summary. Megan, I'm assuming you've gotten a little deeper in the budget. Did you notice any big alarm bells or anything yet?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is notable. I just saw a news article that, visualized this, but the Department of Safety is the only agency that is growing in size, period. Every other agency is getting smaller. And so, yeah, there's a lot there, but I think our city really continues to over rely on the Department of Public Safety to provide things that it simply cannot. And so we will be digging really deeply into the budget, of course, every department, but specifically the largest one that continues to grow even when the city is in a time of cutting down to what the mayor calls, the very the bones, right? So yeah, just wanted to flag that for folks. Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you. And Daniel was just saying Star was cut by 1.4 million, and the Solution Center also got a 1 million cut. I saw a lot, and this is why I need to dig deeper, because it might only look like a little bit of cut here or a big cut there, and then it'll look like there's a replacement or a move of a department somewhere else. But it looks like a lot of services for kids have gotten cut in my first glance, which is very alarming as well. Like a lot of summer programs, feeding children, things of that nature at my first glance, I saw getting cut. And so really alarming things, as we knew were going to happen, and we knew there would be little to no sacrifice from the police department. And then this circles right back to what we came talking about, the bond. And in 2D, we are also asking for a bond measure to build them a new training facility on top of all of that. So super frustrating. And then Dr. Davis, did you want to talk about the CCJRC work as well? Since I think you're a little more familiar with that. You're on mute, my friend.
Thank you so much. Do you have some of their documents that they asked us to share? So CCJRC is leading an initiative to ask the city for $10 million so that we can, so the city will provide direct funding to community organizations. And so if you kind of see this, it kind of mirrors what we've been asking for when we asked for the Office of Neighborhood Safety. But this is community-led safety grant program. So rather than all of these programs, going through the Department of Safety or going through, other government agencies, city agencies, that we would have a way of funding directly to the community orgs themselves that is actually doing the work. So the actual violence interrupters, those that are doing work with the unhoused, et cetera, would have access to a dedicated set of funds, $10 million to be more specific. So this is an initiative, and they're asking organizations to sign on. Do we have the link for any other organizations to sign on? Yes, please. Thank you so much. Um, and we can see your screen, just so you know. I didn't want you to pull up another screen and we find out what your family budget is and your bank account and all that stuff. All right. uh, but welcome to the club, boy. It's a sad club, but welcome to it. Well, with that being said, so that's their proposal. As we have shared with you before, we believe that we need to put something in the city charter that uh, ensures that there's a devoted stream of income, regardless of who the mayor or what the particular climate in the city is at the time, that, ensures that there are dedicated funds that go to community-led entities, community organizations, and community entities who are providing public safety services. Again, when we asked for in the 112 recommendations, so I'll give you an example, Jesse, of what we talked about a moment ago. In the 112 recommendations, we asked for the city to set up an Office of Neighborhood Safety. That's what the first 11 recommendations centered around. The city said, well, we did that by setting up an Office of Neighborhood Safety, but there is not a dedicated stream of funds that goes directly to community orgs. There is not a community infrastructure to ensure the operations and collaboration among community orgs, similar to what we try to do here with the task force and with TOCA. But we wanted the city to do it. Well, as you can see now, there are cuts. And Megan or Christian, I pulled up just a moment ago the budget for the city, and I don't even see the Office of Neighborhood Safety in here. Where would that fall under?
That's in OSCI, Office of Social Equity and Innovation,
Office of
which
Social.
is, I think that's under General Administration, but I could be wrong.
So that'd
It
be the
is
7%.
very little actually cut from it, which is interesting too.
Okay, so that would fall under 156 million that they are proposing for the general administration. And just so you know, they're proposing $767 million for public safety. Good God, have mercy. So yeah, I'm gonna do a control F. I'm sorry to do this, y'all, but I want to look at yeah. So moving OCA's youth violence prevention program to the Office of Neighborhood Safety. Office of Neighborhood Safety. I don't know what any of this means, permanent stuff. Boy, I should have really paid more attention in college. I should not have settled for a C. Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly how much money. Okay, so let's see what they're saying in 2026. The Office of Neighborhood Safety. So they're proposing $5 million for the Office of Neighborhood Safety. Is that accurate? I know, Megan, I'm putting you on the spot here. I apologize because I know you're still combing through it yourself. You in the councilwoman's office. But am I reading this correctly?
Yeah, I need to deep dive on this, but I know some things were moved to the Office of Neighborhood Safety. So I believe like there was a youth violence prevention element that left the Office of Children's Affairs that should be there now. So I would guess some of that increase is because they've taken on new tasks.
Okay. Well, it looks as if in 2024 2025 they had $5 million, 5.8 million, and it dropped down to 5.5 million, if I'm reading that correctly.
You're reading it right, but like Megan said, it's you have to read all the program changes
Gotcha.
because what happens is they cut some programs and then they move some programs. So it's so buried and it's they make it so it's so hard to just read and understand. So it's no, thank you, Megan, for letting us put you on the spot the way we
Y'all are the
did.
best. I appreciate you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks,
It's
Megan.
what makes it so hard. I'm curious, Lisa, I know you've been doing a ton of work with city workers um, who have been laid off. And in our last budget meeting, you were talking also about talking with some of these laid off workers about the budget process and stuff. Is there anything that you wanted to add, or if you're in a position to add or talk to about that, on things to look out for?
Well, essentially what I've heard from them is the mayor is a liar, about, that these jobs were necessary to cut, that if he wanted to find money to keep 170 workers, he could, that there were proposals made in certain agencies that said, you know, this is how it could be done. Cuts could be made since he overspent the budget without laying off a single employee, and he rejected that. I think that I think the other response that we heard to trying to get extra dollars out of this budget by shaking the seat cushions loose is, you know, he sold the couch, so there's no cushions to, you know, shake. One question that I have, and Megan's gone, but maybe we can do a follow-up, is what efforts maybe in the past few years has city council been able to take that were actual wins, like the dollar amount? Because in my recollection, it's never been more than like $2 million. And so I think we fight for the money, but also I'm not into performative, you know, we're going to have all these hearings, and at the end of the day, we're still going to just get crumbs. So I'm just contemplating that, right? There's a lot of frenzy around the budget, but it seems like at the end of the day, it's always, you know, just the mayor will throw a few bones out, if that much. And I'm just also wondering about that staggering figure that Dr. Davis just stated about the public safety department getting what, 800 million, and getting everything that approximately getting everything they've asked for, raises, no layoffs, the training facility into the bond. It just seems like there's something here, and the flock expansion of the flock cameras. I'm just trying to think of a way that we can be a bigger presence in this process in city council, or, you know, and I don't know what the answer is. But I feel like we're going backwards from the time the task force was created, and not because of the task force's fault. Like we've all continued to fight. We are going backwards with now this administration, and of course the previous administration as well. And I don't know the answer at this point, other than, you know, a next election, but it is where we're at right now.
And I want to say this, if am I cutting you off, Dr. Calderon?
Nope, I was done.
Okay, thank you. I want to say this as well, and that is that you know, it's $5 million, even though we do not agree with how the $5 million is being spent by the Office of Neighborhood Safety, in that it's just a reshuffling of the chairs within the Department of Safety over to ONS. $5 million is still inadequate. And it's obvious that that represents, you know, pennies for what's going to actually go to community orgs that are doing the work on the ground. And that's my concern. You know, how are we funding the people that are doing the work and getting the results? Now, the people who are doing the cookouts and, you know, doing the PR things on behalf of the city, but who's actually doing the on the ground work. And I don't know if y'all noticed, but whenever we talk about on the ground work, we never mention the task force in that conversation. Not that we're not doing on the ground work, but we want to make sure that we're always elevating others in this city who are violence interrupters, who are interventionists, who are providing youth services that oftentimes and need to be funded. Anyone who knows anything about nonprofits knows that a lot of these executive directors are coming out of their own pockets to fund a lot of the initiatives that they do. And the city has the money, and it's just not acceptable. It's just not acceptable that we are giving money to bureaucracy versus those who are actually doing the work and have proven track record. Pastor Hughes, I saw you come off of mute. Go ahead, sir.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Two questions. The Dr. Calderon, you just said that that they will be getting, that their raises are still in effect. And did I not hear isn't there a press release that came out yesterday or the other day about 2026 all raises being held on the city for those who are, is that correct?
As she comes off of mute, that's the problem that we're having, is that everyone else is on hold except the police.
Okay.
Is that
All right, so
accurate?
Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
okay. And then the other part is, I know because we kind of had a brief conversation about the CCJRC piece before, but where do we expect them to pull this 10 million from?
Yeah, that's exactly the question. Because the last time we asked them to shift resources, they took 11 million, so basically the same amount of money that we're asking for, and they shifted personnel from the safety department to the Office of Neighborhood Safety, and now that essentially is not going anywhere. And they cut preventative safety positions, civilian preventative safety positions. So I don't know. And that's why I think we've been saying that we need a ballot initiative to create a steady funding stream for providers who are doing this work, and that it can't be interfered with by the mayor, because he's not going to give us anything. And we can continue to fight for it. We should be part of the budget process, but ultimately we need to shift the structure of funding for these programs.
I think that with given the way this budget cut went, which was different than how a lot of other ones previous budget cuts have gone. I think that what you just stated, Dr. Calderon, we really should be looking at how to, or putting in a ballot measure, because we have the justification now, we have the data now, for the from all the cuts, like was said, all these program cuts to the youth and social services. Those are the very things that keep crime down. Those are the things that keep our city moving forward. And cutting those, and I think what he's hiding behind is the federal cuts. I think he's hiding behind the federal cuts, if you will, as also justification. But we know that he has also mismanaged the money. So yeah, federal cuts are there, that's a fact. But then there's also, you've mismanaged the money. And so I think that would be, I think we'd have good grounds to start a ballot measure for that, because you are correct. I agree with you 100%. And if it's not him, it's somebody else who will do the same thing. But these programs cannot be the sacrificial lambs, if you will, for the city and county.
And I would. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Calderon.
Sorry. Yeah. Not only is he hiding behind those things, he's also hiding behind men of color and mostly Black men as his appointees. And so that makes it harder to challenge because then he holds these forums in friendly spaces who like the men in those positions. But it's not about the personality, it's about the structure. And so that's another reason, like they give him cover by the very nature of those appointments. So, you know, like if we're going to look at it all, we got to look at all of it. But I absolutely, we have to change the funding stream. I mean, I even think that city councils should have, you know, more power in the budget, just like they do at the state capitol. This is crazy that we do it this way in Denver. And so that can be a different ballot initiative.
And I was going to say, you know, when you talk about a public safety budget, and I think you're on your phone, Pastor Hughes, so you might not be able to see this as clearly. But when you talk about $768 million, and you say, let's just say that we just took 10 million from that budget for the CCJRC proposal, they would now have $758 million. So, you know, and we wouldn't take it all from just one place. But and here's the catch, and this is why we are supporting CCJRC's initiative, because we think that this initiative will set the stage for us to be able to do a ballot initiative in the next couple of years. So if we can kind of at least get an awareness, we want to get it all the way past, but at minimum, if CCGRC can really raise the awareness of how important it is for community to have access to these funds, we think that when we're able to run a ballot initiative again in the next couple of years, that community will be more understanding. Because here's the reality of the matter: law enforcement, and without any criticism to law enforcement cannot stop shootings in the park. Law enforcement cannot stop, you know, gang members shooting each other. Law enforcement cannot stop burglaries. The best that they can do is respond to it, investigate it, and apprehend the individuals who are suspected of having committed those crimes. And so we have to have the front line. You know, yeah, one of the things I appreciate about this Trump administration, and God knows there's only about one thing I appreciate, is this renewed focus on preventive health and asking the FDA to do more around preventive health. And I know that there's some concerns about how they're presenting that, but at least we're having a conversation. And my point is, we need to begin our focus on what is our preventive measures. Who's on the front line doing the preventive work? And I know that if we go through this 651-page document, we can find $10 million. There's 4 minutes left, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time because we said that this was going to actually be a shorter meeting than it normally is. So there's 4 minutes left. I want to give so for the first part of our strategy, Pastor Hughes, is to sign on with CCJRC. They have a pretty strong infrastructure in place to push this forward. We hope that they can at least get, that they can get the $10 million at the bare minimum, that we're beginning to raise awareness. That's the bare minimum for a longer term ballot initiative. I want to take an opportunity now to open it up to anyone who has any announcements, any orgs that have any announcements, any updates with your org and what you're doing, any support that we can provide for you. We're always asking you to sign on to X, Y, and Z. Anything that you need, we're just going to open the floor. Just take yourself off from mute and come on in.
Hi, Dr. Davis, this is Mylan.
Ma'am.
I just put it in the chat, but I just wanted to flag as we were talking about ballot measures that there's a coalition right now working on a graduated income tax. And that, when we're talking about preventative, right, being able to have our communities thrive would mean being able to fund our schools, public health care, food assistance, other public services. So there's a recent announcement that came out. I think it's called let me see what it is, the Protect Colorado's Future Coalition. I organize with the Center for Health Progress, and so we're sort of exploring this right now and what the role of grassroots organizing looks like for this. But I just want to flag that for folks.
Did you put something? Did you put a link in the chat that we can go check out on?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I see it. Thank you. I'm gonna click on it now. Thank you.
And then I
Anyone?
also said if anyone wants to work on an op-ed with me, sort of making some of the connections that Dr. Calderon was talking about in terms of what this budget reflects and what the Vibrant Denver bond reflects about what what Denver thinks about as public safety. I would be happy to work on that with other people.
Can I connect with you offline,
Yes.
Mila?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? I just want to say thank you to each of you for, can you drop, Kristen, can you drop one more time that link to CCJRC in the chat? It's in there already, Jesse. But she just dropped it in there again. I just want to say again, thank each of you for all of the work that you do. Amy, thank you for your work with our unhoused citizens. And Joyce, thank you for the work that you do in defending the most vulnerable in our criminal courts. Just thank each of you. I could go through the whole list. Johnny, thank you so much for the work that you do with youth and violence intervention. Really do appreciate all of you who are on the ground, really making an impact. Love each of you and thank each of you for everything you do. If there's nothing else, we're going to go ahead and be adjourned, and we'll be getting some information out to you as we always do. We'll be following up with you. It's a hard fight, but let's push forward.